Hey, this is Notser, and this is the user replay of the week. Fort1nero is in the Tier 6 Premium Chinese Destroyer. Anshan. Fort is on the map Fault Line, and I have yet to hear the Chinese localized audio, so this will be an experience for me as well. The game is fantastic, but first, if you have a replay you would like to submit, please submit it to notserreplay@gmail.com. Please have the replay file, in-score screenshots, 1 to 2 sentence summary, and please include the ship name in the title of the email. I really appreciate it. Now, if you can't produce an amazing game, maybe an amazing moment, just include a timestamp for that particular moment in the replay. So, Fort1nero, he's going to head for B, because he's a good destroyer captain. He knows what to do, and the first thing that every destroyer captain should do is head for the closest objective and try and contest it or capture it. At the very least, you can scout out some information of what the enemy is doing. Pretty much every single destroyer has smoke, and that's a great way to protect yourself. If you are someone who charges in a little bit too bold, runs into the enemy, then you can use smoke. An enemy destroyer is spotted by A, and it is in the process of keeping it contested. On the other side of the map, C is being captured, and it's already 50%. Now, it's going up really fast. It has to be 2 destroyers, maybe even 3. Because look, he's already captured it. While B, the next best representation of the capture rate, is not even 50%. So, the friendly destroyer probably doesn't know that it is more than one ship. It has to be more than one ship. So he tried to head in, and he ran into an enemy destroyer near the choke point. And let's not go into the choke point. That would be a bad idea, especially with a destroyer by. That's the one way that you can lose your ship very quickly. So he pulls back. Fort1nero captures B. Nobody came to contest it. And 2 enemy destroyers are scouted over by C. You see, last known position. Make sure it's on. It's very helpful. A is being contested as well, and unfortunately for Fort1nero, the pink cruiser probably going to die. At the very least, the pink one's going to die, maybe even the friendly destroyer that is contesting A as well. But Fort1nero can't worry about that. He can't save a team that overextends on a flank they don't have control over. He's going to send his torpedoes against the enemy battleship that was just visible. Yeah, the New Mexico. Nero also caught sight of the 4th enemy destroyer, so now the enemy can't really surprise anyone. We know where they're relatively coming from. The battleships and the cruisers are much easier to scout out. And Fort1nero pulled a Notser. The Anshan isn't quite as maneuverable as you would like. Think of it as a Soviet destroyer, because it is. The Soviet Union lend-leased this ship. It started out life as a Gnievny-class destroyer, so it has really slow turret traverse, and it also has relatively short-range torpedoes by default, but you can swap them out. The enemy Clemson, he's already dead. The friendly Farragut, yes, the friendly Farragut got the kill, and he's going aggressively towards the enemy New Mexico. And the only reason he would ever be that aggressive is if he has torpedoes. And indeed, the friendly Farragut sends out torpedoes on the New Mexico, and he suffers the consequence for that. Will the New Mexico survive or even take any damage? It looks like a couple did hit. Not all of them. And Nero was detected by one of the 2 enemy destroyers that were over by C. One of them came towards the center, but it appears that he's headed north to go after a friendly cruiser. And speaking of friendly cruisers, Nero loses one right in front of him. Right in front of his very eyes, his friend dies. But you can't think of that now. You have to think of sending torpedoes against the enemy, New Mexico. And that's exactly what he does. Now, maybe the aircraft caught sight. It's hard to say. It was very close. And the New Mexico appears to have turned north, trying to catch sight. Nero's sort of boxed in. There's a lot of enemies around him, but he decides to head north, maybe support the battleship, not the cruiser. And one of the two enemy destroyers is pretty low. Now, if I was Nero, I would probably go after the lower of the two. He's close enough that he can safely engage him, and it looks like Nero gets the idea. Okay, yeah, 9 kilometers, let's shoot him down. The enemy is fighting off cruisers in the center, so Nero is not the primary threat. They are not going to engage him. They are going to ignore him and try and take out the friendly cruisers. Now, that doesn't mean that the friendly cruisers are going to die, because let's face it, they can't take on that amount of enemy team. And Nero takes out one of the two enemy destroyers, and he can change his focus to the Mutski, who is about 50% life, and try to get within torpedo range of the New Mexico. Now, if Nero was not here, the Mutski would not be detected. Neither would the other destroyer, and they would have gotten into a close torpedo range of the New Mexico. Duck Chow just got lucky. I mean, the fact that Nero happened to be in that position really did save his life, in my opinion. You can't really deal with two enemy destroyers without a cruiser or a friendly destroyer to back you up as a battleship. That's just the weakness of your class, and you're supposed to lose in a situation like that. And speaking of losing, the enemy team is going to capture B. All of the friendlies are dead there, and now it looks pretty bad. 4 friendlies have pushed into A, and there are about 4 enemy ships over by A. Only 1 is detected, so 3 of them are hidden. Where could they be? Where could they want to go? Nero sets up a torpedo attack on the New Mexico, not the Cleveland. Remember that replays don't keep track of who you have set as a primary target. It doesn't show you the rudder shift as well, and it doesn't have a real-time notification for what speed you would like to be. It only shows what you happen to be at the time. And the torpedoes are right at the max range. They might actually miss, but Nero did get close enough that it could hit, and in fact, it might hit. The first set definitely looks like it's going to be on target, but the second set appears to be a little behind the New Mexico, and he's going to hit 3. Oh, just barely missed one. He causes a flood. And is the flood sticking? No. He put the flood out. He repaired the flood. How can you put a flood out? Well, it's sort of like fire. It's sort of just cascading on you, and you have to plug up the holes and stop it from coming in. I mean, it's sort of putting it out. But yes, he fixes the flood. He's using a heal. Nero will no longer be doing damage, and Nero, you gotta avoid the island. Don't run into it. He was waiting to try and get his torpedoes any attempt at the enemy Cleveland. And I think Nero has decided, let's go for C, okay? We're already down by a lot, and we're down by more because another enemy has defeated a friendly. But let's take C, deny the tick rate, and possibly come from a different angle. And while all this is going on, the enemy team is grouping up. It's a standard assault force. You take 2 bases and you group up, force the enemy team to come towards you. In this case, it's Nero trying to overcome a stronger enemy team, and that's a huge disadvantage. But in order to start coming back, you need to deny tick rate. Otherwise, you have no chance at all. Absolutely not. The friendly battleship that he's helped save, I think it's fair to say, is coming back and can engage the enemy Cleveland that he tried to torpedo and was unsuccessful. But thankfully, he didn't pull another Notser, although I would have enjoyed it. One benefit of this is he has clear sight of the enemy. He can decide where he wants to go. The Cleveland knows he's in the capture point, but that's all he knows. He has no idea that Nero is about to come out of this little tunnel or gap. It's not a tunnel. It feels like a tunnel, but he's going to come out of this gap, and he could potentially ambush the Cleveland, and that's exactly what he wants to do. He's going to have to angle away in order to bring about the torpedoes, and the Cleveland has yet to react. So, Nero is going to be able to send his torpedoes before he's even detected. Finally, he's detected. And oh no! The Cleveland just fired his guns, and they're going to slowly rotate. He has to avoid the torpedoes. Is he going to be able to do it? It doesn't look like he's reacting in time. He takes one on the nose. 8,400. Are the others going to hit? Yes, they do. And the enemy Cleveland is defeated. That worked out pretty well, I would say, Nero. It's a little shocking that the Cleveland was so absent-minded at the prospect that maybe, perhaps, a enemy destroyer would be the one coming out from sea to support his teammate. I would probably make the same mistake because that's just how dumb I am. But really, it's an obvious play for the destroyer to try and use the information that's given to him to his advantage. That's pretty rare as a destroyer. Usually you are the one giving that information. And you know what the information is giving me right now? There's probably not a good chance for Nero in this game. It's looking pretty bad. His team is down by 440. But honestly, if he can salvage anything, it would be impressive. And that might be what the game's about. Maybe the friendly battleship is behind him, and that's it. If it wasn't for Nero backing up the battleship, he would be 1 versus 5. And we've seen one solo warrior. Surely this can't be another one. Well, you know, enemy Kirov is right in front of him, and that's terrible. He sends his torpedoes against him. A little shallow of the indicator. Perhaps he expected him to turn tight. He pulls away, though, and look, he's going to try and slow down. It looks like, oh, wow, AP, okay, that's fantastic. He might have dropped his torpedoes, though. Remember, Soviet cruisers have torpedoes, really short-range torpedoes, but they have them. And I believe the friendly New Mexico is scouting the enemy New Mexico, so Nero can stay in the smoke and fire his guns. Now, another enemy ship fired. We saw the shells over on... Yeah, Nero saw it too. We saw the shells just to the southwest side of that island. So there's two. Two enemies are pretty close. That was very close. Probably within 5 kilometers of his position. Oh, yes, he was. He was very close. 4.3. Now, Nero is still in the smoke. It's not going to last that long, though. Probably 10 seconds, 15 if that. But Nero decides to go after the target that is much closer. He does have one more set of torpedoes. His next set is coming online in 15. So he could just take this guy out if the New Mexico is this brazen. Don't ever do this. Why would you get this close to smoke that you can't detect from? In a battleship showing a perfect broadside, Nero decides, okay, let's send a torpedo. The New Mexico turns just as he sends the torpedo, so this might actually miss him. But he's detected now because the smoke isn't there, so he's got to do something. Now, the New Mexico is turning directly into the torpedoes. He would have avoided it completely. But it looks like Nero, indeed, is going to get the kill on the New Mexico. He takes a shot from the other New Mexico. Yes, you can see the guns looking directly at him. And one of the enemy ships is trying to recapture A from Nero's team. I don't know where the third enemy ship is, yet to be detected. If I hazard to guess, it could be the cruiser that might be with the battleship. And in fact, it does look like A is being captured at a faster rate. So yes, I think both enemy ships that are not accounted for are capturing A as I speak, and they've fully captured it. But Nero is going to counter that capture by taking B. Nero's team is down by 50 points. And he decides, okay, well, the enemy New Mexico, he's going to be coming around the island, and the indicator was somewhere around this area, so I'm going to send my torpedoes. It might just catch a glimpse of the enemy, but why not? I mean, it's not a super long reload on these torpedoes. It's not like Tier 10, where the default reload is something like 3 minutes. You can't really risk to take a chance on 3-minute reload. But I am definitely willing with a minute 20. It's not a big deal. The friendly scouts out, well, I guess Nero would have scouted that out as well. They scout out the enemy New Mexico, and the first set looks like it'll hit. It's just Will 2 of them hit? I think he's going to get 2 torpedoes on this guy, and he does. He also causes a flood. Oh boy, that was a bad shot from the friendly. The friendly died, and this is not good. Down by 100. 4 minutes left. 2 bases to 1. Nero has to overcome. I believe there's enough time for Nero's team to win the match just on capture. But let's be honest, it's never going to get to that point. Either the Cleveland and the enemy that's behind him, I believe it's a battleship, go towards the center and just brute force it, or Nero is lucky enough to get either the Cleveland dead, the New York dead, or the New Mexico, who I doubt is going to allow themselves to flood out. I'm sure he already used damage control. But Nero has his torpedoes he's going to send against the Cleveland. And his scent pattern, he's going to just try and maximize the width of the indicator, and he sent it directly at it. We'll have to see how the Cleveland reacts. Now, if I was the Cleveland, I would probably have my aircraft up if I could. Any chance I could get. Now, I wouldn't use hydro necessarily. I wouldn't know that Nero is right there. I would try and sail as neutral as possible directly towards B, and it's not what he's doing. He flattens out at the worst possible second. He's going to make sure that the torpedoes hit him. He can't react in time, and Nero gets the kill. Wow. The worst possible moment to change your positioning. There's no way he could have brought the rudder back in time to save himself, and that's just bad luck. But what could the Cleveland have done? Well, we know that most players, 90%, have situation awareness. So he could have asked both the New Mexico and the New York, are you detected? And he probably would have gotten no and yes. Okay, since the New Mexico is not detected, he can't be somewhere in line of sight. What is blocking it? A lot of islands. So the destroyer is probably not on the north side within one of those gaps. You know, you could even go as far as to really interrogate the New Mexico. How long have you been undetected? Did it ever spike again? No, it never did. Okay, well, we know from the geography of the islands, he probably would have shown himself if the destroyer was somewhere close to that location. So since the New York and the Cleveland were only detected as they went through that channel, then the destroyer must be somewhere in a line-of-sight path. I've never not been detected, so he's never gone behind an island. And use that to your advantage, and I would still aggressively push towards B, because you gotta take it. You gotta protect your team and the lead. And he just made a critical mistake in the worst possible moment. But Fort1nero made it possible by playing it correctly, taking points, and keeping undetected. And that was critical to his success. Absolutely, he needed to remain undetected. Fort1nero earned Kraken Unleashed, almost 100,000 damage done, 10 torpedoes, 3 fires, the 5 kills, obviously, to go along with Kraken Unleashed. It's always weird for me to say Kraken Unleashed and 5 kills. He also got 2 citadels, just to say he did, and he captured 3 bases, which is going to net him a lot of XP. And he certainly earned a lot of XP, 2,790 base XP. Just a super carry. If it wasn't for Fort1nero, his team would have definitely lost the match. But Nero was there to save the day, and he indeed saved the day for his team. As far as the damage is concerned, 13,000 in HE, 6,000 in AP, 65,000 in torpedoes, and he earned 14 or almost 15,000 in floods and fires. Just a fantastic job in using all of the tools available to him at the time. I hope you enjoyed seeing Fort1nero carry his team to victory. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.